Look at this. Even though no full triangle is drawn, our brains automatically fill in the gaps to see it as a whole shape. This idea that we naturally see a complete picture even when only parts are present is at the core of the Gestalt psychology, which studies how we organize what we see, hear, and feel into meaningful patterns instead of isolated pieces. Gestalt means configuration or structure in German, and Gestalt psychology focuses on how our minds put things together into a whole. Max Wertheimer, who helped develop this theory, said, "The whole is different from the sum of its parts." This means we recognize the entire scene before noticing individual details. For instance, when we look at the photo of a face, we see the face as a whole before thinking about the nose, eyes, or mouth. Or when listening to music, we hear the melody and feel the emotion first, rather than focusing on each separate note or instrument. One of the main ideas of the Gestalt psychology is the law of pregnance, or law of simplicity. This law says that when we look at complex or unclear objects, our brains try to make them as simple as possible. For example, in this case, where we perceive a complete circle where none exists. Another example is the Olympic logo. It is actually made of broken, incomplete shapes, but our brains sees them as 5 interconnected rings. Other principles that help us make sense of what we see include similarity. When elements look alike in color, shape, or size, our brains group them together. Proximity. Things that are close to each other are viewed as a group. For example, if we see a line of people standing close together, we tend to see them as a continuous line, rather than separate individuals. Common region. Objects within the same area are seen as belonging together. For instance, items inside a border or within the same space feel naturally grouped. Continuity. Our brains see elements along a line or a curve as a continuous flow. For example, in the Amazon logo, with the arrow from A to Z, or the flowing script in the Coca-Cola's logo, guiding the eye smoothly across the text. Closure. Our brains naturally close gaps in familiar shapes, so we see incomplete images as a whole. For example, the WWF panda logo has missing parts, but we still recognize a complete panda because our minds fill in the gaps. Common fate. Elements that appear to move in the same direction are perceived as a group. For instance, a flock of birds flying together is seen as a single unit because they share the same movement pattern. Figure ground. Our brains separate objects from their background, like in the cup and faces illusion, where we see either the cup or the faces, not both at once. In conclusion, Gestalt psychology shows how our brain naturally groups what we see, hear, and feel into whole patterns, helping us quickly make sense of complex information as unified experiences rather than separate parts.